Okay, let's do this. What's up, Scyushi Squad? We back in some more Trove, and today we're going to be talking about those Shadowhunter nerfs. Yes, that's right. Shadowhunter's journey hasn't even started yet, and already he's getting slowly but surely nerfed into the ground. Now, I know that a lot of you guys that are at the end game, more particularly those of you that actually do the delves, which is like, what, 5 of you? Shadowhunter was at a point where it was actually an insane delve killer. Like, it was doing insane amounts of damage under very specific conditions, but most of all it was related to the ultimate ability of the Shadowhunter, in which case my argument today and why I'm so frustrated about the nerfs to the character actually isn't about the ultimate ability. Frankly speaking, I'm perfectly fine with the nerfs, or at least some of them that we've had for the ultimate ability. Most of all, what I don't like is that Shadowhunter is kind of getting to this point where it doesn't really fit into any category extremely well. So even though we're getting a rework, Shadowhunter is still going to end up being pretty much the exact same as it was before, even if granted it's going to end up being more viable on a technical level. The fact remains that you could still end up swapping a lot of your gear to any of the other characters to be more efficient at speed farming. Other characters handle delves better and so on and so forth, because even if, you know, just because you can do a lot of damage doesn't necessarily mean that you're extremely viable for every category. But we'll get into all of that stuff in due time. First of all, let's talk about the nerfs themselves. So the class gem got nerfed for whatever god-awful reason. The damage is at 250% down from 325%, so that's a very significant nerf. Now, just to be clear, because I thought this was funny, I checked back on the old patch notes, and version 1 of the Shadowhunter rework was doing 200% damage, and now after all of this time we're doing 250% damage. And the only reason I'm pointing this out is because anybody who played the first version of the Shadowhunter rework, like, the rework itself is really cool, but it was extremely underwhelming in its power. Like, Shadowhunter was just way too weak. So we have 50% on top of it being too weak, and it's still too weak. I would have liked to see the damage maybe brought down to 300%, but not 250. That's way too low. Also considering this as well, so the overall attack speed bonus has also been reduced of the class gem ability. Now, here's the thing. I find it really weird. I'm gonna have to like compare some footage or something, because even though they say that they ended up nerfing it, I don't know whether or not they're talking about this attack speed right here. Because maybe, don't tell the devs I told you this, but I don't think that the developers realize that the class gem ability of the Shadowhunter is actually not affected by attack speed. There was actually a huge argument back in the day, those of you remember, when the class gems first came out, and I noticed it right away that the attack speed doesn't actually affect the Shadowhunter's damage per second with its base shot, because the way that the class gem works is it just basically changes your attack into a set animation. Now, I'm not saying that you still can't benefit from the attack speed bonus, more particularly with its other abilities, like the ultimate ability shoots a lot faster based on having more attack speed, but the class gem effect itself, like the rapid fire, I think that they were trying to nerf that, but I don't think that it actually did anything, so don't tell them. But anyways, moving on. Sacred Arrow, the ultimate ability of the Shadowhunter, has had its damage over time effect reduced to 7 seconds in total, down from 8.5. So basically we've got a damage over time, or a dot as I've referred to it many times, where we tag the enemy and then bop, 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 bop is going on, right? So that effect lasts for 7 seconds instead of 8.5. And then they also changed the tick rate. So normally it would actually end up going bop, 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 like it was at a 0.5 second rate. And now they've changed it to a 1 second rate, which is very subtle, but generally speaking is a pretty significant damage decrease. And again, that I'm perfectly fine with. It's the class gem ability being nerfed into the ground that I disagree with. They also ended up changing it so that your Shadow Seekers will now deal increased crit damage, which basically you attack an enemy that's got Shadow Mark on them, and then you get these arrows on top of your head and you shoot them out of you, and now they do more damage, but it doesn't really matter because developers, if you're listening, you really need to change the Shadow Seeker ability because it's useless right now, and it sucks because it's a cool ability, but it just barely ever hits its mark, and it takes too long to build it up. Like, it's just such an unviable piece of crap. Now, we will talk in more detail about my opinions of the Shadowhunter rework, but generally speaking, we've got some other patch notes to go over, and this one, ooh, you pirate mains are gonna flip out over this. So check this out. Our first mate now has its attack speed increased when it's fully upgraded by doubloons. So we throw down our right click, you can see that's its base shot, and then we get some doubloons, and when it's fully maxed out, check this out, bang, 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 bang. Look at that, dude. Now, granted, it takes a little bit too much time to still build those guys up to their 3rd tier, but that's going to end up making Pirate Captain mains very, very happy because it makes, you know, the damage that Pirate Captain can do has already been quite substantial. It's just that the class didn't really keep up with other characters because of the way that the turrets function, but at least they're taking huge steps in the right direction for Pirate Captain, which I really, really like. They've also changed private delves. Nobody asked, but hey, whatever. Where as soon as you've gone 9 levels in, and then you end up failing to defeat the delve boss, a new portal will automatically open that you can end up taking into another private delve that's going to be a lot weaker. So I don't really know the functionality for that or reason why they ended up doing it, but whatever, they did. They also changed it so that we can finally loot collect all the event delve portals. Okay, cool. Space has also been added between the damage number digits. So for me on PC, we've got a mod that has the dot in between the damage number digits, and that's already good enough. In fact, it's better than what they changed. Basically, what they're doing is rather than putting a comma, which would have made total sense, they just put a space between the numbers, which at least, you know, can't complain. At least console players are going to be able to see how much damage they're doing, right? Which, yeah. So anyways, let's hop into an Uber world and just try out some quick damage numbers and, you know, test it out. Generally speaking, the way that you play Shadowhunter after the rework is going to be kind of a mishmash of using most of its abilities, not all of them, because the Shadow Seeker is so useless. This is kind of something that they've done with all of the reworks, is they try to make all of the abilities useful, which I think is really, really cool. So Shadowhunter's roll gives it a movement speed buff, and the thing is that this movement speed buff, you can see, is not very significant, but that's actually because I have attack speed on all of my gear rather than movement speed, and we'll talk about why in a minute. But the thing is that the movement speed buff you get from this used to be 60%, but it got brought down to 45%, which means that, okay, so that means that Shadowhunter doesn't shine in terms of its speed farming capabilities, because basically, let me explain how speed farming works in Trove, because there's only 2 aspects to it. There's the distance with which your character can travel, so your literal movement speed from dungeon to dungeon, and that is probably the most important aspect of a speed character, right? But then the second aspect is time to kill. That's what I like to call it, where how fast can you end up clearing the dungeon? So because the Shadowhunter doesn't have significant movement speed, it means that it has to compensate by having really good time to kill for a dungeon boss and stuff, right? So let's actually try this out right here. We go in the dungeon, we blast this guy away, and I mean, it was decent, sure, but now you see, as soon as I'm trying to take care of individual opponents, that's where Shadowhunter starts falling flat on its face, and a lot of that could be rectified by the class gem ability being able to phase its shots through enemies. This is something that lots and lots of people have been wanting, but the devs just refuse to do it, and I don't know why. Probably because they don't actually play this game. Because here, let me show you a cursed skull, right? So if I go to this and then I'm just using my base attack, I'm killing things fast because I'm doing a decent enough amount of damage, but I'm killing them too slowly comparatively to someone like the Neon Ninja, who could just throw one shuriken and defeat everything in the way, right? So what you'll actually end up doing for the new gameplay of the Shadowhunter is, because your damage numbers are a significant boost, when you're dealing with multiple herds of enemies, you'll actually throw down your traps constantly, and they're strong enough that they'll be able to end up defeating most enemies no problem, right? So that's kind of your crowd control ability in terms of both damage and functionality, because in, you know, something like the Delves, for example, your snare can be invaluable to end up freezing enemies, and you can technically end up stun locking enemies and stuff like that, which is, it's really overpowered, but it's something that we haven't seen in years because Shadow Hunters or Shadow Towers aren't in the game anymore. But okay, whatever. So anyways, the whole thing is that, you know, the whole thing is that let's grade the Shadowhunter in terms of its speed farming capabilities. How does it fare? Is it at a point where I could suggest maining it? Well, yes and no. Because with these nerfs, I am very disappointed with most of all the nerfs to the class gem ability attacked. Whoops, I actually ran out of stuff, or ran out of bombs there. Because here's the thing. So I'll shoot these enemies and we're doing, you know, 16 mil, which is not super ideal. Keep in mind, again, I don't have all of the perfect stats on my gear right now because I'm favoring attack speed. Because if I actually take off my class gem right here, actually, before I take it off, let's do a couple tests. So we're doing, like, you know, 16 mil for our basic shot, roughly 18 mil for when we end up having a shadow marked enemy. And then there's also going to end up being when we throw down a trap. So a trap was doing, I think, 29 mil. 29 mil. It's doing pretty significant damage, actually. Yeah, 29 mil. So this is pretty consistent, right? Let's just go with that. But here's the thing. If I end up taking off my class gem, the funny thing is that the way that Trove works is all of your abilities will actually scale off of your base attack, or at least they just generally do. It's just kind of how this game works. It's very odd. So keep in mind that with taking my class gem off, I do not have a yellow empowered gem replacement, okay? So we are losing a substantial amount of crit damage, physical damage, and we no longer have 100% crit hit, right? Not to mention my gear, my weapons and stuff aren't completely ideal anymore. But whereas we were doing 16 mil before, now our base shot is doing 21 mil. Keep in mind, if I had a yellow empowered gem to replace this slot, we would be doing even more, probably like 30 to 40 mil. Who knows? Now, arguably, our shots are a lot slower. Generally speaking, range shots are very inconsistent with Trove as a whole. But the fact is that our average damage does kind of go up. And the reason for this is because they've constantly been buffing the base attack of the Shadowhunter, but they haven't been nerfing that, like without the class gem ability, which I find hilarious. And it just goes to show that people aren't actually willing to dig deep and actually test out stuff with the Shadowhunter. They're only going into very specific categories. Most of all, the only testing that I've seen, and the reason why Shadowhunter is getting such substantial nerfs, is because of some freaks that have been using it in the delves, and Shadowhunter being the absolute best at that, which honestly, I'm perfectly fine with Shadowhunter being the best at anything rather than nothing, because that's where Shadowhunter is right now, is he is not the best at anything, unfortunately. So let's do our trap, see if we can get, okay, that was a shadow mark, but either way, 24 mil versus 29 mil, so the trap scaling was a little bit less. But again, considering the fact that the trap and our ultimate ability would end up doing more damage if I ended up having absolute ideal stats. And Shadowhunter, what I'm getting at with this is that Shadowhunter potentially is going to end up being stronger without its class gem ability because they ended up nerfing it so far into the ground. Which is just so stupid. Like, seriously, it's very, very frustrating right now, because the thing is that what I want from the Shadowhunter, and I don't care what the naysayers have to say about it, I want Shadowhunter to either have its movement speed increased back to 60% devs, if not more than that, because then speed farming would become something that's viable, or have its damage numbers increased as a whole. Generally speaking, I'd like to see the class gem ability increase to a point where it's actually viable. Bring it to 300% instead of 325%. That leaves everybody happy. Then at least I'm still doing damage both in here and a decent amount in delves, if not, you know, not a great amount. But that's the thing, is it's like, as of right now, Shadowhunter doesn't shine as a speed farmer, doesn't shine in delves, and it doesn't shine on Leviathans. And unfortunately, the funny fact of it all is that the majority of classes have also gotten buffs. Some of them have gotten nerfs, like Chloromancer has just been nerfed into the ground, like it's back into an early grave. Sorry, Chloromancer mains. But something like Neon Ninja, where you're arguably already the fastest and strongest character for speed farming, and they've actually buffed it. I don't know why. But yeah, unfortunately, Shadowhunter just keeps getting nerfed. So that's my opinions towards it, is that I agree with them nerfing the ultimate ability, because I feel like, yes, Shadowhunter was just way too substantially powerful with that. I enjoyed it, but I agree that it's really, really, like, just way too strong. I'm fine with Shadowhunter being the strongest, but it, you know, it has to earn it and just be a little bit stronger than another class, not a lot stronger, right? That said, the base attack and the class gem ability constantly getting nerfed, that needs to change. Shadowhunter, frankly speaking, is at a point where it's not good enough again. And it's really disappointing, because it's like, bruh, Shadowhunter is my main, and I've been maining this class for years, even to the point where I swap off of Shadowhunter just because it's so unbelievably garbage on the live server right now, even though it's one of my favorite classes. And unfortunately, even with the rework, because every other class is being brought up, it means that the rework to the Shadowhunter is less substantial overall. And it's disappointing. It's very, very disappointing. And I really hope that the developers listen to these criticisms and actually bring it back up, because frankly speaking, I feel like they're listening to the wrong crowd right now, because everybody's kind of getting way too upset about how powerful Shadowhunter is, or in my opinion, how powerful Shadowhunter should be, because we've seen more substantial reworks on other classes that make these characters gods. Like Lunar Lancer basically went to the test server, and within a week it was already on the live server. It didn't end up getting any major nerfs or anything like that, and Lunar Lancer is top 3 in terms of speed farming right now, which I feel is exactly where that class belongs, is a speed farmer, right? Whereas Shadowhunter is at the point where it isn't really getting brought up enough. It's actually being slowly nerfed more and more and more, and I mean, it's kind of at the point right now where we just kind of gotta just swallow the pill, and just swallow the red pill, and just say, okay, well, it's better than the Shadowhunter on the live server, and unfortunately, I think that that's the best we're gonna get. So unfortunately, this rework sucks. It does. It's not as substantial as all the other reworks that we've seen to the other classes in the game, which is very, very disappointing, because Shadowhunter has been one of the weakest characters in the game ever since I started playing. And unfortunately, I don't know, like for me, I feel a lot of mixed emotions, because I don't know how much criticism and how much of the nerfs to the Shadowhunter are justified, and how much of it is just people being a big baby because they don't want Shadowhunter to be super substantial and strong as a class, because that's what kind of happened back in the day, is when the Shadowhunter first got its class gem ability, or when all of the classes got their first class gem ability. I was rigorously testing out all the characters and trying to give my feedback to the classes on the Trove forums and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that was where I got a huge taste of just how toxic the try-hard community of Trove can end up being, and unfortunately a big slap in the face of the developers in realizing that they just frankly don't listen where it counts, because this is my past experiences, okay? It's kind of a bit of a touchy subject for me, so I just want to kind of put this out there to give you guys perspective as to why I get so overly frustrated when I see these nerfs happen to the Shadowhunter, because I'm worried that it's happening again. I'm worried that, you know, the devs are listening to the wrong people, and they're slowly nerfing this character into oblivion, which is exactly what happened when the class gem came out, including the Boomeranger. Boomeranger, when the class gem first came out, was at a point where it was perfectly viable, but everyone was saying how it was too powerful. And guess what? It wasn't too powerful. It got nerfed into the ground and become completely inviable. Same with the Shadowhunter. Everyone was like, the class gem ability is too strong. And it ended up getting nerfed into the ground. And unfortunately, that seems to be what's happening again. Now, again, yeah, sure, Shadowhunter's viable after this update, but I want it to be like good. I want it to actually be like top 5 in terms of any category, which it is not right now. It's not a good speed farmer, it's not good for Leviathans, and it's most definitely not good for Delves after these nerfs, which anyways, the whole thing too is that a lot of people keep complaining about how Shadowhunter was too powerful in the Delves, and I just want to say to those people, you're the 10% of players that actually play the Delves for fun or play to the end game of Delves. And I know that the devs put a huge emphasis on the Delves, and I feel really bad about that, because nobody likes the Delves. And if you can get to deeper Delves, frankly speaking, who cares? Like, being deeper in the delves only really gets you something for the leaderboard. It's not like it increases your odds of getting crystal gear, and crystal gear isn't tradable even if it would end up being something that you get more substantial amounts, results with. So the biggest thing that I would end up saying to anybody that's saying the class is too powerful is that this is a PvE game. We're allowed to have classes that are completely busted, and frankly speaking, Shadowhunter is not. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's disappointing for me, but I hope that those people that just keep whining to the devs are happy about where the Shadowhunter is, because I'm not. I don't like where he is right now, and it's really disappointing. But thankfully, we've got Elden Ring coming out in like less than 2 weeks, so that'll end up distracting me from Trove's shortcomings. Anyways, that's my 2 cents towards it. I don't mean to get it like super serious or super negative or anything, because again, I want to reiterate, Shadowhunter is perfectly viable after these changes. It's just not going to turn anybody's heads like all the other class reworks ended up doing, and it's disappointing. But let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm the minority in this. Maybe you guys think that these nerfs are a good thing. I just want to, I always want to open up the discussion that, well, maybe this could be wrong. But I'm perfectly capable of saying that if everybody else agrees that the Shadowhunter is good as he is right now, then I just gotta kind of suck it up and deal with it, But generally speaking, I think that they got nerfed a little too much. I don't know, at least with the class gem ability. What do you guys think? Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Sorry this video is so late today, guys.